Now, Socrates' greatest student was Plato. Now, Plato was more like what one imagines when you think of the ancient Greeks. He was athletic, he was handsome, he was rich. He came from a very prominent family and was certainly destined to take his place among the leadership of the city-state. Plato became enamored with Socrates' ability to take apart the arguments of the city's leaders, and he was describing his teacher in that famous passage from the Republic about the philosopher kings. Plato was a very spiritual man, often using metaphors and parables and other storytelling devices in his lessons and lectures. One of the most famous of these became known as the allegory of the cave. Now, in this story, taken from the Republic, Plato likened society to a dark cave where people were chained to the wall, trying in vain to interpret the shadows they see in front of them. But some of them have souls that break free of their confinement and travel up to the firmament on a chariot led by the twin horses of desire and reason. Now, when they break through the firmament, these lucky souls are witness to the forms, perfection, unattainable in the flawed human world. But then, of course, the chariot fails, the horses fall, and the soul plummets back to the dark confines of the cave. Only now, these particular souls have insight into perfection, into the forms of things like love and truth and justice. And these people now try to make the rest of the people in the cave understand the wonders of the forms and thus be able to interpret the reality around them properly. These were the people known as philosopher kings, and the only people, according to Plato, who had the ability to lead society. Now, when Socrates was executed for subversion, Plato lost his confidence in the Athenian city-state. He removed himself from the affairs of the city, and he used his personal fortune to set up Plato's Academy, which became the model of the modern Western-style university. Plato's teaching technique, constantly asking students to explain and justify their positions and assertions, became known as the Socratic method of teaching. Plato lived out his days teaching and studying the nature of reason, truth, logic, and rhetoric. As the old saying goes, it's important to make a good first impression. Now, for public statements, that first impression is forged through the introduction. In this video, we're going to discuss the functions of the introductory part of the speech and how a speaker can design an effective introduction. Now, to be effective, the introduction to a speech must accomplish 4 things. It must engage the audience, reveal the focus or goal of the speech, establish the credibility of the speaker, and preview the subject matter about to be discussed. The first function is to engage the attention of the audience. Now, there are many ways a speaker might engage the attention of the audience. Let's discuss a few of the more common methods and how best to use them. One common idea is to start with something light, a joke or a humorous anecdote. Now, humor is good. Good humor is better, but the best humor is something that is related to the topic. Telling a joke might be a good way to chat at a party, but when you want the audience to regard what you are saying as legitimate, then starting off by telling an unrelated joke can give the audience the impression that you are not serious. Funny thing happened to me on my way to this speech this morning. Always remember, something light that involves the topic is great, but unrelated humor presents more risk than potential reward. Now, another great way to engage your audience is through a collective or rhetorical question. Many of us have been in an audience and been asked, how many have done this or that? Now, in fact, the rhetorical question is so common that it risks becoming a cliché. But don't worry, Here are some do's and don'ts with regard to opening with a question to the audience. First, the do's. Do. Ask an innovative question. Sometimes inexperienced speakers will ask an obvious question. So how many of you like music? If you can safely assume that the answer will be a broad yes or no, then you might want to ask a more interesting or engaging question so that the audience will be prompted to consider their response more thoughtfully. Quick question, mountains or beach? Or, if you were going to be trapped on a desert island with only one music CD to listen to, which one would it be? Now another do is do solicit the response that you want from the audience, even if it's no response at all. If you want a crowd to respond to you, they need to know what you want them to do. Now sometimes people just don't want to be the only person answering. And so if everybody fears being the first to answer, the result is that nobody answers at all. So when you want the audience to raise their hand, put yours up first. Hold your hand high and proud and ask how many others can relate to what you are asking. Look around at your audience. Ask more than once. Give them time to respond. Invite them to do so.